Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Thursday. Sorry, I was trying to read the screen. I don't know why. That was just one of those days where I read the screen, so I'm a little slow at the uptake.
So you know what the topic is today?
No, that's why I was trying to read the screen. I was posting a quote about growth. I got behind on those, and I was trying to do a little multitasking, and not so good.
Well, you know.
That's Tom. I'm Bob, and this is today's Antidote for Thursday, April 29th. Hey. How are you, Tom?
I am doing very well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm good. It's a little warm on the enclosed porch today. It's humid.
First, you're complaining about being too cold, and you didn't turn the space heater on, blah, 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 blah. Now you're complaining about it being too warm? What the heck?
And I'm drinking the coffee in the lovely mug my sister and her daughter gave me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice plug there. I like that.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Look, you're not in the ring of renegades, and you might, well, I don't know. I can't say that you could get a coffee mug as well, but you could have conversations over coffee in the ring of renegades.
No, we never did that. Conversations over coffee was what remember that was the first thing we were going to do together?
I do remember that.
That's an oldie but a goodie. November 19th, 2019.
Oh, you still remember that day? That's good.
I have the sheets I printed out sitting in my office, and I use them for scrap paper. So I see it every time I go to my office.
The day I remember was October 18th, 2019, when we were like,
no way.
This thing is in a month, and we actually have a space reserved. We better cancel it because this is the cancellation day.
That was a good day. So if you thought that you were talking to people who are experts at everything, you're in the wrong place. Tom and I are finding our way. We're just maybe one or two steps ahead of you, probably. And that's okay. And I think that's one of the things that I've had to come to accept about entrepreneurship and leadership is no one really knows what the heck they're doing, Tom.
Well, they know what they've done.
Yeah, but not what they're doing because everything's new.
Everything is real.
And new.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, the situation changes. It's very rare that you have the exact same situation.
Well, you never will because you've already experienced it once.
Correct. So now you have new insight, new knowledge, new experience, new perspective. I got your lingo down.
I don't know where insight came from, but that's okay.
Did I say insight?
You did. You started with that, but that's all right.
Okay. All right. We should probably talk about our topic before we get completely off track.
Do you want to talk about things we have coming up in May?
I would love to, Tom. You know that's my favorite part of the whole day. Here we go. You ready? Oh, you didn't. Tom, what mood do you want me to be in?
Well, somebody the other day said slow, quiet Bob was a downer. So I like upbeat Bob.
Okay, upbeat Bob it is. Your wish. Hey, folks, it's the Ring Renegades May event schedule. You all should watch this. I'm going to let you read the screen. I'm going to tell you what Tom does while I do this today. Tom takes a drink of this orange stuff. It looks like Tang. And then he just looks and he tries to figure out how long I'm going to talk because he wants to hit the button right at the time that I stop. And I never make it easy for him. But if you haven't looked at those yet, we've got a Roundup networking event coming on Tuesday 11th, 8:30 a.m. You've got the weekly check-in, check-up. I wasn't able to make it yesterday, but I heard a lot of great stuff about it. And Thursday, May 27th, right before the big holiday weekend, get together with us at 4 p.m. to do some networking. Phew.
Well done.
Thank you.
I was wondering if I click the button to switch screens, you would just immediately stop talking.
I thought about it.
Well, I thought about it as well. So we've got growth. So we've
got growth. Have you noticed our programs get less and less formal as the week goes on?
No, I haven't noticed that, but
It is a trend.
Evaluate that. I might have to evaluate that and understand whether that's helpful or not.
Okay.
So that is our topic today. We've been talking about growth all week. Talked a little bit about what it is, how we sometimes need to manage it, and how we can use it to benefit what we're trying to do. And so today we're going to talk about evaluating it and how do we truly take a look at evaluating our growth so that we have a better understanding of how to move forward and what we want to do moving forward. So you want to share some thoughts on that first, Bob?
Sure. I think it's really hard to accurately evaluate our growth. Just like I was telling you about my day yesterday, I had a family situation that took me away from work. I had to cancel a couple of meetings, and I said to you, it was a lost day. And you said, wait a second, did you help your family? And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, all day. And you said, that doesn't seem like a lost day. So I think there's a really simple experience, and I think that's what we struggle with when we're evaluating our growth, is that we are not the most objective people. I actually have a client who he didn't know he was a millionaire until I said to him, you're a millionaire, you know that? And he's like, no, I'm not. And they went, checked the numbers. Sure enough, he was a millionaire. It wasn't, he just had never put his growth together. But I could look at it from the outside and say, you've got this, these assets, these things. You're a millionaire. It floored him when I said it. He was like, no, I'm not. But then he looked at the numbers. So I think we are really incapable in most cases of accurately assessing where we are in our growth because we over-evaluate or overweigh our sweat equity and we underweigh our successes. And if you gave me the scorecard and said, all right, Bob, you had 5 failures and 3 successes, how would you rate your week? I'd be like, oh, it's a horrible week. I did nothing right. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that's the problem with evaluating growth. It's difficult. And I've talked to other people who say they don't really evaluate their growth accurately until they do a plan to go to the bank and get an investment or to get some backing. And then suddenly they take real clear stock of it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is where we are right now. And I wouldn't even know specifically, Tom, exactly what the markers are to show really good growth. Like you have your KPIs, right? Key performance indicators and all that stuff. But I think there's a whole different approach to it.
Well, I think it's funny. I was writing about that on LinkedIn yesterday, is that I think everyone thinks that growth is measured always on revenue and clients or customers. And I think that, yes, that's one piece of it, but there is so much other growth that needs to happen to allow you to have that. And just because you have a huge growth in revenue doesn't mean you have a huge growth in net revenue. You might have a huge growth. So if you double your revenue and you triple your expenses to do that, is that growth? Maybe. I mean, you could look at it as one way.
Until the time you have to pay the taxes.
Well, right. And I think that becomes the question, or pay yourself.
Yeah.
I think that so often those are the things we only look at it by. And I think what happens is that so often we use evaluating growth as a judgment. So like when you said, well, I had 3 successes and 5 failures. What if you just had 8 results? Is that a good day or not? Does that say that you have made some growth? I think because as soon as we start judging it, now we're starting to look more deeper into it and be like, well, that was a failure. And once we use the word failure, how can we look at it any other way than as being bad or negative, or it's going to weigh us down? I was talking with somebody yesterday, and, I think they were thinking about growth in this huge exponential growth. Like, I need it all now. I need to have all the answers right now. And one of the things I said to them was, and they're like, well, I guess I can go out and Google how to do this. I said, sure, you can absolutely do that. I said, you're probably going to find 8 million things, and it's going to be even more overwhelming and confusing than you thought. And you'll probably get stuck, and you won't be able to decide. I said, or you could go find somebody who knows a little bit more than you do and take the value that they offer until they no longer have more than you, and then you go find somebody else. It's those incremental steps that sometimes make a difference. We were working on something the other day. We have a system that allows you to do forms. So we thought that might be a solution because that was what we knew at the moment. And still we started looking at other options, and we started to identify that this is good. The other thing is takes us a little bit further, gets us a little bit closer to what we do. And I think it's that.
And we brought in someone who knows that world better than we do, which is
Correct.
a key component. We had Tim Nebergall join us, and he really helped crystallize and clarify some things for us.
Well, what he did was he brought what's real for him and the knowledge, experience, and perspective he has. And it triggered something in me because they came back and said, this thing is really good. And I'm like, all right, well, what if I go look for what are the competitors of this? Maybe I find something else that it's a different solution and that it works, that I would have never thought about on my own. And so I think, that in and of itself is growth in an area that we needed. And I think we don't think about all those other things. You talked about the key performance indicators that are a part of it. How much more knowledgeable is our staff about what we do? How much more knowledgeable is customer service? If you're trying to be the one who's answering the problems, but you don't understand all the processes that the people out doing the work do, how can you be? So the more knowledgeable they are, the more beneficial it's going to be for everyone. And the more if they take those steps, the more beneficial it's going to be. So I think it's just a matter of being willing to evaluate and not spend a whole lot of time judging it. Just being, okay, that's what it is. What do I need to do differently to then move me to whatever the next step is? And I think, what I shared in that post was, and I'll put it in the Ring of Renegades, was identifying what are those key 6 to 10 things that would make a significant difference, and then figure out where do you currently stand, how do you measure it, and how often are you going to measure it, and then that will help you identify growth when maybe the revenue growth isn't there right now, or the client growth isn't there.
Do you think, Tom, if you had been left with the task we've been working on for the last couple of days to do all by yourself, you would have reached the place that you got with some input from me, some input from Tim, some input from someone that Tim works with?
Would I have reached it alone?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Well, I may have. It would have taken a lot longer. And I think that's the thing, so often. I remember when I first started my business, I was looking for a CRM. And I spent 3 months trying to figure out every solution.
You did. I remember you asked me what I used, and you asked me what people I work with use. And all.
3 months of okay, if I take this free edition and then I use this, I got to transfer it over to this. And, there were just nothing that was really beneficial. And then I found something that, is it perfect? No. Could there be other things to it? Absolutely. For the moment, it was way better than what I was trying to piecemeal together. Now I had to invest in it.
Right.
And that was a decision that I made, and it led to other investments. And I think that that's the piece where, that's where the growth came in, is that I realized that, yeah, I could try to do this alone and I might succeed, but it might take me 3 months. If I had gone out and searched and found 3 people who do what I do, 5 people, and just talked to them about how do you manage this? Someone might have said, well, this is what I use. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And I could have been 3 months ahead of the game.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was basically.
I was going to say part of that is you made a commitment to investing in yourself. When
Correct.
you made that decision, that was a catalyst. I remember when you told me you had found this and you were going to do this. It was a huge growth moment for you. Whoa, Tom's serious about this. He's not fooling around anymore. This is getting real for him. And I think that's what catalyzes growth, is when we make those commitments to ourselves. I talked to someone a couple months ago and they went out and bought a brand new computer. And it changed their whole perspective on their business. They suddenly had a really good set of tools, and it you could see them just having more of a swagger about them. It's like, I invest in myself. I invest in the technology. I'm going to do great things. And I think that's what often, when we're thinking about growth, what are those markers that say we're serious about it? You know, I'm thinking about buying an Apple Watch. I've always wanted an Apple Watch. I'm thinking of buying one, and I'm trying to bribe myself. If I buy the Apple Watch, I will run every other day. That's what I'm trying to process in my head. That's the motivator. If I buy the watch, I'll run every day. And so far, I haven't bought the watch because I don't know if I can uphold my bargain. But that would be growth. And that's investing in myself. Buying a, I don't know, $299 watch, which doesn't seem like a lot of money to some probably, and seems like a lot of money to others. It's one of those things, and I think we do that in our business all the time. You know, do you buy that piece of software? You talked about piecemealing things. Do you piecemeal with, oh, well, I'll keep my budget on an Excel spreadsheet because QuickBooks is really expensive. And I'll use Gmail instead of getting a domain. And I'll use a templated website from Wix or GoDaddy rather than build my own website. And I'll use my home phone. I called someone back about 3 months ago, and their child answered the phone. I'm like, oh, does it take your kid to work day? It's like, no, this is our home phone. I'm thinking, ooh, you don't want a 9-year-old answering the phone when you're doing business.
Right.
And so I said, here are some options for you. Have you thought about this, this, and this? And the person was like, I had no idea that was even possible. Like, here it is. So,
right. And that's why I think, evaluating where you are and finding people who have, again, they don't have to have 15 steps ahead of you. If they have 3 or 4 or 1, and they can help you have that type of growth, that's the key thing. And I think that's what happens if we don't ever evaluate. We don't know, like, what are the missing pieces? It's interesting. I did this in a class, and one of the areas that they asked us to consider was, who are the partners you have around you as a entrepreneur, solopreneur? And they were things like attorney, insurance person, bookkeeper, virtual assistant, and I looked at that and I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, that would show growth. If I really truly needed and had all of those people, that would take me further along where I would want to go. And then once I had them, I'd have to evaluate, okay, well, what's next? Am I just their client? Or do I grow to the point where I need somebody in-house to manage it on a full-time basis? You have a full-time, you pay accountant or bookkeeper. And I think those are the things that help us better identify, like, where can we go next? What's the next thing that we can do that's going to move us forward? And again, while it might not be in revenue, it might be in a way that allows us to have more time to spend on how are we going to generate revenue.
Let me get some comments in, Tom, because they're my favorite part of all of this. Tim says, I'm a thousandaire. I like that. That's good. That's progress. I bet
might be a 999,000
That's it.
So maybe we should send him $1 and he'll be a million.
That would be funny. Tim also says, when we pool our knowledge, we can all benefit. And I think that's really something that I wrote about it in the Renegade Way book. There's my plug for the week. And it was the whole idea that if I'm an entrepreneur, I have to do it by myself. There you go. Nicely done. If I'm going to lead a company or if I'm going to lead a team, I have to figure it out all by myself. If I were to actually ask for help, that hurts me. That means I'm not really worthy of that position. And what I find is the more I ask for help, the more I solicit help, the more I learn, for one, but also the more innovative I can be. The best solutions come from me talking to people and just going, I get this really weird thing going on. I don't know what's happening. And the person says something to me. It's like, oh my God. Oh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. But the reality is I would have never thought of that because I was here and they were able to be out here.
Right.
And we all do it.
Well, I shared this with somebody yesterday, is that they were talking about, they had been in transition and they were talking about what a struggle it was. And that until they, and as they said it, their quote was, until I had a good cry, I was able to let it go. And they were like, well, I don't know how to tell that story. I'm like, well, just tell it like it is, because there are people out there who are exactly where you were 6 months ago and are thinking that, well, it's just going to pass. I'm just going to get by. I'm going to get through this. It's just not going to be an issue, and I'll just figure it out. And what I think they realized, and I shared with them that I had realized, is it will always pop up. And if you haven't let it go, it will slow you down. If you have at least understood and shared that emotion of what happened, it's not going to be as impactful. It's going to pop up. I've had some of those things in my life, and do occasionally things strike me as, and I go back to a frustration or an anger about something that happened. But it's so much easier now to let it go, because I know that I'm in a better spot, that this is where I am supposed to be now, because this is what's real. And I think having that and being able to share it however you feel best sharing it, you're sharing what's real for you that will impact someone else. And I think that surprised them. I don't think they had thought about that. Not like I'm some genius. I just shared my experience, and that had an impact on them. And I think that's how we figure out our growth. Somebody shares something with us that says, I hadn't thought about that. Or that's a unique perspective. Or, wow, it's interesting you had been in that situation. What does that look like? Now we're helping others grow.
Which, Tom, when you say helping others grow, that reminds me of one thing and one thing only. That is our Find Your Renegade Way in 90 Days program that we put together. Our goal with that program is to help you figure out how you can grow the way you want to grow. Growth could be increasing your revenue. Growth could be getting a CRM system in place so you know where your customers are. Growth could be working 3 days a week instead of 5 and still getting done what you need to get done. Growth could be hiring an employee or creating processes that are more efficient. We built this program with the goal of helping people just like you. That's right, just like you. Figure it out over 90 days. You, Tom, could be you or even me or anyone. This will work for anyone, whether you work for a company, a nonprofit, whether you're on your own, or whether you're thinking of rapid expansion. This Find Your Renegade Way in 90 Days program is really what you want to look at. I'm going to put the link while you talk in the chat box, Tom, and hopefully people will take a look and join us, because we're getting ready to start it up in the next week or so, right?
Absolutely. I'm not sure what you want to talk about, so I'm going to share my one thing. I don't know that
I forgot about that.
The whole purpose of the show is to provide the one thing. How could you forget about that?
I had to do some shameless promotion, Tom. Jeez. I'm having a good day. I got my book in and our Find Your Way in 90 Days.
Impressive. Very well done. That's growth. You found a way to just now we just need to evaluate. Okay, was that the right time? Was it appropriate? Was it okay? What went well? What didn't go as planned? And how would I do it differently?
Oh, boy.
So one of the things I want to share is my one thing about evaluating it is it's really hard to evaluate it unless you know where you want to be, unless you know what the end result might look like, because you know where you are, and that's sometimes easy to understand. But knowing where you are without something to evaluate it against doesn't provide you with any idea. Like when I was trying to figure out my CRM, I knew where I was. Now I knew what the best was because I had worked with some CRMs, and I also knew that was not in the cards for me. So I needed to figure out like what was the measuring point and how much closer could I get to it. And, I still think about that piece of the one wheel that we once did about, do you have an attorney? Do you have an accountant? Do you have a bookkeeper? And that pops up in my head regularly as helping me understand my growth within my business. And so I think it's figuring out what those things are. And sometimes we don't know because we've never done it. And so talking to somebody else about it. And so I think one of the key things you can do is identify where do you want to be? And that's what I think is cool about, and I'm going to throw this in, the 90 days. It's about where do you want to be on August 1st? Do you know what that is? So that you can measure over the next 90 days, how close are you getting to that point? And if you haven't, that's exactly where we're going to start. So I think that's my one thing today is get clear on what you want growth to look like and be realistic about it. You can be aggressive, that's fine, but also be like, okay, this is what I think I can do in the next 90 days. And where am I right now in the progress towards that? For some people, you're like, I haven't even started. For others, you're like, yeah, I'm pretty far along. Okay, what do I need to do to help me get there? Because I think when we evaluate it, it makes it a lot clearer what the next steps are.
I like that, Tom. The only thing I would say is make sure when you're doing that evaluation of growth that it's not just how much money I made, how many employees I have, how many customers I have. Because if we know the 80-20 rule, 80% of your business is coming from 20% of your customers. That incredibly large number of customers may not be what serves you best. And I've seen it in my own business. Both businesses have benefited from people who just like Bob and just find a way to work with Bob. I mean, I'm honored by that. And you have it you have it as well. And any business. So when you're just looking at the raw numbers, the bottom line, I don't know that that's the best evaluation, because sometimes companies, when they're having the downtick in sales, that's when they become the most creative. And that's when the growth really starts to happen, because they have to do things in new ways. They have to find new efficiencies. They evaluate vendors and say, hey, wait a second, this might not be the best deal.
Well, one of the things is you can't control what a customer does, what a client does. So
I'm trying.
Oh, yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. We can put things in front of people and they have to make a choice. So
or not.
Well, correct. But, so to only evaluate yourself on something that you have little control over. Yes, you can put all the information you want out in front of someone. You can walk them into your store. You can go over and have a conversation, put them in a car, let them test drive it, and they can still decide. You can do everything right, and they can still decide to walk away. And I think that's what's so hard is when we're only focused on that, we don't have complete control over. So what are the things you have complete control over? You can determine how many people you're going to call. You can determine how many people you are, what your marketing message is going to be, and how are you consistent with it. You can determine what is the messaging our staff is going to use. How are they going to be approached? You can determine what are the events you're going to attend so that you're in front of the people that you want to be in front of. You know, that to me is how you grow yourself. And when you grow yourself in that regard, or grow your business in that regard, likely the revenue and the clients and customers is going to go up.
You should take that little segment, Tom, and use that somewhere. That was really beautifully done. Truly.
Thank you.
Really. Like it gave me chills.
Wow. Well, yeah. So I guess I've accomplished my goal for the day. My day is done. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Please feel free to share your one thing if you would like, because I think we all have different ways of evaluating our growth and understanding it. And I am sure that it will benefit someone in the group or someone who is paying attention to what we're doing. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, these are happening all the time in the Ring of Renegades. So please join us. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades. It is a private group. So you have to ask to join, and you have to tell us why you're a renegade. And then you can be a part of our ever-growing group, our ever-growing community, trying to help people take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So here is some further information about the Ring of Renegades. We hope that we will see you inside of the group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Carving your own path is tough. You want and need a community to offer you insights and advice, share inspiration, provide support, and save you time and money. But where do you find all that? Here's the easy answer: the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners identify their next steps. Here's some of what you will find at the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. Just go to ringofrenegades.com and join today. Find and accomplish those next steps.